Welcome back. Well, it's almost a week since Shepherd Bushiri and his wife Mary broke their bail conditions and escaped to their home country of Malawi. The matter has been placing a lot of attention on South Africa's borders. And Home Affairs Minister, that's Dr. Mothotoane, lamented the poor state of the borders in Parliament. But let's discuss this now with Ottilia Maunganidze from the Institute for Security Studies. Ottilia, thank you so much for your time this morning. I mean, the big question is, it seems to be quite easy to illegally cross the border into South Africa. Why is this so?
Right. Given the context that we're having this conversation, I think it's important to stress, obviously, that both Shepherd Bushiri and his wife, Mary, definitely have a lot in terms of financial means to be able to pay their way out of the country and back home to Malawi. For the majority of people that do enter into South Africa without going through a proper port of entry, for most of those, they are crossing through essentially the land border, and in the absence of border patrols, it is fairly easy for people to do that. That being said, the majority of people that do come into South Africa or leave South Africa do so through formal and legal channels.
Yeah, so there clearly is a policing problem or a monitoring problem when it comes to South African borders.
It's difficult to just frame it as a policing or monitoring problem per se. South Africa has quite a long border, both land as well as sea. Including, of course, the border with Lesotho, which is inside South Africa. And in the absence of full manpower to be able to do those patrols or even video monitoring, frankly, it's near impossible to do that. And this isn't a problem or an issue only for South Africa, but a lot of countries do encounter the same challenge. The main hurdle, ironically, is less about the patrolling of the borders, but more about the actual barriers to entry legally into South Africa.
Right.
So where people are unable to get their visas or their permits, then the option for illegal entry comes up.
Yeah, I mean, our eNCA reporter Lindogu Hlekulu recently went to Beitbridge border to see for himself how seamless and easy it is to cross in between South Africa as well as Mozambique. Between that border, it seemed like it wasn't much of a problem because of the patrolling issue that we speak of now. But I mean, Ottilia, Patricia de Lille as a minister has also received harsh criticism around, the fence that was meant to also sort of divide the country and be part of the bordering, obviously, the separation from one country to another. I mean, how is that also sort of like a risk or even a problem in South Africa in terms of the kind of borders that we actually have around South Africa?
Right. The cost, for example, of what was then a short stretch between South Africa and Zimbabwe that was fenced off is incidentally way more than actually ensuring that people have legal access into the country. And I think one of the main challenges here is looking for options, essentially for legal pathways for people to be able to access. The reality is, regardless of whether you have a high border wall or whether you have or whether you have an open border, so to speak, people that will and do want to cross unlawfully will do so. The main emphasis, rather, for the state ought to be able to encourage more people to use ports of entry, so to go at Beitbridge border post itself and rather than adjacent to it, which is what the majority of people end up doing because they cannot cross through the legal channels.
Absolutely. And correction there, I mentioned that it's a border between Mozambique and it's actually between Zimbabwe and South Africa. That is the Beitbridge border with which we're just talking about there. But, Till, unfortunately, that's all the time we had. But thank you so much for talking to us about this issue.